All right, guys, we are live. All right, folks, welcome back to another episode of This Week in Photo. I'm your host, Frederick Van Johnson, here with me to discuss a few of the interesting stories that are affecting photographers this week. I'm joined by Mr. Jeffrey Totaro from Jeffrey Totaro Photography and Doug Kay from All About the Gear. Hello, gentlemen. How are you?
Hello, Frederick.
Terrific.
Good, good. Doug, you need to stay away from the tanning salon, man. What is going What is going on?
I'm doing
you
the
almost
John.
have as much melanin as I do. What's going on?
It's the Donald Trump, John Boehner look, you know.
Yeah.
Oh
Just
man,
throw orange at it. That's it.
there you go. Who was that? Who was that actor that was famous for his tans? Remember that guy? I can't remember his name. It's right. I can see his face. Whatever. All right. We'll get it by the end of the show. It'll pop into our heads. But Doug, what's going on, man? You back and forth to Cuba? Have you established residency there yet? What's going
Just
on?
about. Yeah, did my 5th trip to Cuba. It was terrific. And then I had to decompress shooting humpbacks in Maui, and a couple of weeks I'm heading over to Paris. So life is hard.
Terrific.
If you look up the word tourist, you'll see Doug Kay's face right there, taunting you. You wish you could be me, don't you?
What better way to travel than to under the guise of reviewing cameras and taking pictures?
There you go.
Exactly.
All an excuse. One big tax deduction.
Well, what else is going on, Doug? Anything else?
Well, yeah, that's it. I'm doing. When I'm here, I'm teaching Photoshop, doing some street photography workshops locally, and I'm prepping for Cuba in 2017. Probably go January and March.
Nice. And you're taking a group down there, or is it just you?
Yeah, no, it's a group of. We'll take 10 people down each time.
Love it. Love it. And you come back with 10, right?
Well, 10 plus cigars and rum.
Okay. 10 people. So basically, they're bringing back cigars with you, right?
Well,
so you're 10 people because you need each person to bring an allotment of cigars.
That's right. I carefully select people who are non-drinkers, non-smokers, and who have no friends.
There you go. Thanks, Jeffrey. Jeffrey put in the chat. George Hamilton.
Yes, yes.
Is the doppelganger for Doug Kay. Got it.
Yeah.
All right. Well, Doug, welcome. Welcome back to the show, man.
Thank you.
All right. And Mr. Jeffrey Totaro, what's going on with you? Long time no talk?
Yeah, it's been a while. Well, I managed to spend a whole week in Palm Beach, and I didn't get anywhere near as tan as Doug. So, yeah, I did about a month ago. I did my annual workshop at the Palm Beach Photographic Center, teaching architectural photography, interiors photography, and it was great. So we always have a nice mix of people. It's a small class this year. We had 6 students, which is just perfect because it's unlike a lot of workshops. It's really, we go to locations that are interior locations, so we can't bring in 25 people into a restaurant to take a few shots. So it's good to keep a small group. So we had a couple people from the West Coast, East Coast. One woman came from Cancun, Mexico. So we always manage to have one international person. So it's nice.
Love it, love it. I'll actually be passing through her neighborhood next week.
Oh, terrific. Okay,
yeah.
That's good. That's good. Yeah, so it was a fun workshop, and otherwise, year's been off to a pretty good start, and just keeping busy with the usual stuff. So.
Love it, love it. Yeah, it's always good having you on the show because Jeffrey, I've said it before, but I think you represent the far, I don't know, left or right in terms of, depending on your leanings,
Right.
In terms of gear, right? Because your gear, you use Megatron, Transformers level gear, and Doug's going out there. Doug is moving the opposite direction to the horse and buggy with regular film.
With film, right? Yeah. What's that? Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, so it's good to have that range on the show.
For sure. Yeah.
It's all just capturing light. It's the art of photography with recording light. All right. Well, speaking of the art of photography, let's transition into the first story, which is about Google and the Nik Collection of software. Last week, they surprised everyone and changed the price of it to, wait for it, $0. So this collection was $150, and this software is really, really good. This is not like, okay, this is this cheap plugin and it does one thing and it's over. This is software that you will probably use, if you're not already using Nik software, you'll probably use this almost every day in your workflow. It's really high quality software, and the folks at Nik, even before they got acquired by Google, were craftsmen in creating these really, really good tools. Doug Kay, when you saw this announcement, were you sad? Because knowing you probably already purchased it. But did you email for a refund or what? What'd you think?
And I think if I read the announcement properly, anybody who bought it this year since the beginning of 2016 does get an automatic refund. It sounds like they're just going to send it back the money. I purchased it. I purchased it back when it was, Nik, before it was Google. So I've been using some of the stuff for a long time. I don't use it much recently. I've gotten away from almost any kind of post-production, but I'm a big fan of SilverFX Pro. It's a marvelous piece of software, and when I did used to tweak images much, it was probably my tool of choice 50% of the time, when I wanted anything special. Marvelous piece of software. But you asked, was I sad? I'm in the camp of people worrying that this is the end of the line for the software. Google has such a bad record. I'll kick that back to you and let you discuss that.
Yeah, we're definitely gonna dive into that. Jeffrey, what about you? You saw this? Do you use this kind of plugin software in your workflow?
Not consistently, but I did use SilverFX Pro back when it was Nik, and just like Doug said, it was tremendous. It was great for black and white conversions, and I looked into some of I can't remember the name of their big the one color suite that they had, but the SilverFX Pro was really great. And the only reason I stopped using it wasn't even because Google got involved. It was because when I was using it, it was because Phase 1's Capture One Pro didn't have a black and white conversion tool within the RAW software, but now they do. So I stopped using SilverFX Pro when I could then, rather than do it on the TIFF side, I can now do it on the RAW side. And Capture One has very similar tools, not as extensive in the filters. They have just standard, sepia, split tone here and there for black and white. But when I used SilverFX, it was great. Everything about it. You could add, that was the first time I saw the structure slider being offered anywhere, and that slider was really good. Now that's virtually everywhere. Yeah. So so I think it's. I
think we unilaterally agree that this is, or laterally, unanimously, we agree unanimously. We agree that the software is awesome. So, which Doug, you foreshadowed this, and I put this in the notes. I highlighted this. This worries me. Like Google, like you said, they don't have the best track record of longevity or sustained relationships, right? So, this may be a sign. A lot of people, and we've said in the article, that we were looking at, that this may be a sign that Google is about to end of life this software. And what does that mean, Doug? I mean, from one standpoint, it's software. If it works, it's great. It's not buggy right now, so you can keep chugging with it. On the other hand, that means no more investment in making the software better and updating it for future platforms, etc. What do you think about this? Does this mean stop using it?
No, no reason to stop using it. If it works, it works. You use the tool right up to the last minute until the batteries die. But Google does have a track record of dropping things like a hot rock when it suits them. Google Plus is just barely a shell of its former self. Google Photos has had a few things happen there, but the speculation has always been that Google acquired Nik in order to get Snapseed for the iPad and the iPhone. I think there's an Android version too. I'm not sure, but Snapseed is a brilliant piece of software that I never used, just because I
use it all the time. I love it.
I don't do any processing on an iPad, but but I played with it enough, and it's really a marvelous tool. But that was the speculation at the time. That's why they acquired that company. Then, of course, they bundled all the suite together. They released it for whatever it was, $149. Even then, though, people were speculating that it looked like it might not be something they keep long term, since it was the secondary reason that they apparently acquired the company. Now they seem to be going that direction too. So I don't know. They haven't made Google doesn't make statements. They don't come out and say we're going to support this forever, because nothing's forever in the world of Google.
Yeah, I know which is good and bad, right? It's the internet. It's the nature of the internet is change, and if you don't like change, then don't use the internet, right? Right. Jeffrey, exactly. What about you? And when you saw this, does it worry you, or just like Doug's saying, keep playing until the Energizer batteries die?
Well, on the one hand, if it's free, you can't complain if it disappears. But
Yeah.
I think two things. One is that I wonder if they are somehow trying to get this in the hands of more people because they want to get some feedback and see what features people really like, and then they're going to roll out maybe a whole new bundle of tools or something in the photo editing.
Optimist. I love that optimism.
That's me. Yeah, I mean, because you think, well, one reason to make it free is you want to get it out there in people's hands.
Yeah.
The other one is I think Tim Cook said something to the effect of, if it's free, you're the product. So, meaning that somehow they're going to try and monetize by having lots of eyes on screens, one way or another. So similar
that's what Google does. I mean, that's nothing new for Google. That's hello, Gmail, Calendar, everything they do is you are the product, and they're monetizing you. But on that glasses half full standpoint, I was looking at it and I was thinking, well, maybe they're looking. Maybe the next step for Nik software is to continue rolling it into the web, right? And Google Photos and putting that horsepower. I know they've done some of that already, but moving that horsepower wholeheartedly onto the web where they can control the experience more and update often and, like you said, monetize people and convert you into the project or product instead of having you off and on your own with your own bits that they don't know about. Right?
Yeah, I would read that terms of service carefully. Who knows what they're going to try and throw in there if you're going to be somehow using the stuff on the web, and maybe it's open to their use as well. Who knows? Could be.
I think you have to do the math. I mean, how many people do you think use Lightroom or Photoshop? A few million?
Yeah, I would say probably pi times 400.
Okay.
A lot.
How many people by comparison use Gmail? How many people by comparison post photos online? Yeah. The market of people who A, use Lightroom, and B, the subset of that market that actually would use a plugin is so small that it doesn't meet the threshold for Google to call it a market.
Yeah.
So I don't
see, an experiment.
I mean, yeah, I don't see how they could possibly afford to continue it given that the scale of the way they view the world.
Those two words don't really go together in my head, Google and afford. They can fund it until 2075 and not even feel it. But you're right. In the end, it's a business, and it's got to pay for itself at least and show some growth in order for it to be viable for them to keep it going. And it can't just be all kumbaya. Photographers love it. If it's not making money, then it's got to go.
They need a potential market of 1 billion users for everything they do.
Right.
No, I'm serious. I'm serious.
Of 1 million, would it be?
1 billion, yeah. If they don't have a potential market of 1 billion users, then they basically aren't interested in those businesses.
Oh, jeez. I should just shut TWiP down now. Then it's
they're not going to buy TWiP anytime soon.
I know, yeah, because I'm barely scratching 700,000 here. Come on.
That's pretty damn good.
Yeah. Okay, so then that begs the question of cloud services. Again, I've talked about this on the show before, and if they are in fact moving Nik, and I have no insider information, obviously, I'm just armchair quarterbacking again. But if they are moving Nik and that code base more and more onto the web, into Google Photos, to make that the one-stop destination for photographers. And they have that juicy lure of unlimited storage with a few little asterisks in there. If you are lured by the siren song of their bug light for photographers, and you go and you land in there, Doug, I would throw it to you first. Is it safe, considering the track record? And Google is making this almost irresistible Darwinian, nectar for photographers that we just can't help go get. All this power in there and free storage and one stop, and it's safe. It's Google on their servers. But once we get in there, is it a roach motel? What do you think?
Yeah, I if it were me, and I don't have stuff. I have stuff stored in Google Photos because I have all that stuff from Google Plus from the day it began, but I don't count on it. I think Instagram for sure, and maybe even Flickr. Depending on Flickr's still owned by Yahoo, isn't it?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. So I mean,
or maybe it's the other way around now.
Yeah,
Yahoo's lost its value.
But I think you got a better chance of having your stuff stay there forever. I can't think of a free cloud-based service that I would count on to have my photos stored in long term. I use all those services. I have my stuff displayed there. You can look at it, but will it be there a year from now? I don't have any faith in that.
Yeah, and you don't really need to care because you have offline methods to back everything up. So if one of these services says, "Hey," you get that letter from the CEO saying, "Hey, it's been a great run, but we're shutting the doors in 2 months. Get your images while you can."
Yeah.
You're like, in your world, Doug, you're like, "Okay, yeah, it's fine, whatever." Another one bites the dust, and go jump on your plane to Cuba,
Yeah,
right?
I'm not going to bet my Jeffrey would do the same thing. I'm not going to bet my photographic business on any of these services.
Exactly.
Yeah.
There you go.
Jeffrey, what do you think? I mean, cloud services, dangerous, stay away, or?
Well, I think two things. For me, as a professional and someone who's sitting right next to 20 terabytes on Drobos that'll never make it into the cloud, and I have a very robust backup system here on Earth, I think that it doesn't appeal to me too much in basic cloud services. However, I did come to a realization that if I do want to start doing cloud service, I have to forget about the 20 terabytes sitting next to me, and maybe just from today forward start using a Backblaze or one of these other services to upload stuff just as it comes in. But on the other side of that coin is your consumer market photographer, because I've always worried about just the average person who likes to take pictures of their kids on their phone. Any means for them to get their photos up into the cloud and stored safely, because eventually they're going to drop their phone in their toilet, and they're going to lose 2 years of their kid's life in photos because they probably don't have a backup strategy. So anything like that can provide a backup strategy for your average consumer who likes to take pictures, I think is great. Yeah, will it be there a year or 2 or 3 from now? That's an excellent point.
That's so scary, though. I mean, that's so scary because you're talking about an entire generation or multiple generations even of memories that could theoretically just go away, right?
Yeah.
I mean, all these memories that are being taken by these millions of people over time, if that service one day just something happens or they end of life it, I'm sure they'll make an offboarding workflow for you to get your stuff off of there, but it seems scary that all this stuff is just in the cloud, just hanging there, and one day that cloud may evaporate.
Yeah, it may completely go away, so it's hard to know. But I think Google's a pretty safe bet. There are other ones that have come and gone, but hopefully Google would be around for a while, because that, like Doug was saying, there are billions of users, pretty much just your average consumer with a phone, camera phone.
It's just so interesting that this came up because I just grabbed a handful, but my son is turning 40 in 2 months.
Wow!
And luckily he doesn't listen to the show, but I'm making a book for him, right, of all sorts of photos. So I'm digging through all the shoe boxes in the closet, right, and going through, and I'm scanning negatives, So I've got boxes and boxes of stuff here, drugstore developed stuff from when he was a kid, and I'm going through all that now, and I'm dealing with what happens to all these old photos. First of all, once I'm gone, I don't really care, but it's an interesting problem, like you say. iPhone in the toilet, whatever it is, people want to be able to save these memories. The problem now is that people have too many photos.
And the other piece of that is some people that are watching and listening to this, Doug, will say, see, that's where digital comes in, because Doug, you got to go meticulously through each one of those prints, put them on your scanner, scan it in, maybe clean up the dust spots if you feel like it, and then build the book. And finding your son in each one of them, people that are on the other side of the coin would say, hey, if all those were in Google, you could just search for that face, and boom, you've got an album full of images where that face appears in them, and you can order your book and get back with your life. So it's a double-edged sword, right?
It's good to be young. Because if you're young enough, you don't have a 40-year-old son, and every picture you ever took of your kids is already digital, right?
There you go.
I don't have more film images than I have digital images, but I have a lot of film images.
Yeah, but what are you going to do with those? Are they all scanned in? Or are they just...
I sent a whole bunch to India to be scanned a couple of years ago, and then I discovered more in the closet. Now I don't have time to send them to India, so I have to scan them myself.
Free those images from their silver halide prisons, Doug. Come on. Get them out of there. I don't know. I hate to be the curmudgeon, and I love new services, and I like trying stuff, but increasingly over time, as you start seeing, maybe it comes with just experience. You start seeing these patterns in the chaos. Like even with Google Plus, remember So all that hubbub and they did a conference and all this stuff was happening. All bets were on Google Plus, and then not even what is a year later, it's there's napkins and paper plates on the ground and everyone's across the street.
Right. And left.
It's like,
people put a lot of time into trying to exploit their presence on Google Plus, and it's gone.
Yeah. It's for the most part gone. And I don't know. And Google Plus, I mean, they've revved. I went over there for the first time in a while. I was over there poking around today, and they've done a lot of changes in there. The UI has changed. Things are sliding around and animating. It's beautifully designed, but it's beautifully designed, and no one's at the party. So it's frustrating. It's frustrating. All right, guys, let's move on to story number 2. Story number 2 is, let me read this lead-in. This comes to us from The Guardian. So last week, another terrorist attack took place in Brussels, as we all know. Within hours of the attacks, images from the scene of the attacks began hitting the news, along with an image of a flight attendant. Her face bloodied, her top blown open, exposing her bra and bare stomach. An opinion piece in The Guardian raises the question of whether the need to portray the horror of the attacks outweighs the dignity of the person. So I thought this was ideal. Bruce and I thought this was ideal to talk about on TWiP. Jeffrey, a story like this, I mean, we're moving into like TWiP political, controversial sort of area here. Obviously, the terror attack in Brussels was horrible, but notwithstanding that, the news and the news segment, or the reporting or the photojournalism part of this is where we're going to tackle. So does it make sense, in order to get the horror of the story from that place and into the mind of the world, that you show that story as gory or as controversially as you can? Does it matter, or should the photographer instead buffer it and try to get the point across without being, R-rated, maybe PG? What do you think?
Well, I have to say, well, first of all, it's, obviously our thoughts and prayers go out to all those people who are involved in that terrible attack. But I just say, when I saw this photo when it first came out in the newspaper, and it really grabbed my eye. I mean, we all as photographers look at lots of photographs all day, but this really caught my eye, and just for both women featured in the photo, it's shocking, and it's I mean, you think about photojournalism as it relates to let's say a traditional war with soldiers, and you think, well, the soldiers are there, they're that's just part of their job, but this is a civilian that was part of this attack, and I feel okay with it. I asked my girlfriend what she thought. She thought it was a little bit of a violation of her dignity, but I think as a photojournalistic statement and really getting across to the viewer what happened and what it's like to be involved in something like that, I think the photo can stand on its own just fine. And because looking at the photo, she's got one shoe blown off her foot, and she's just a complete shock. It looks like her hair is actually blown back from the power of the blast. Yeah. And just a complete shock. And what you probably can't tell is her ears are probably ringing from the sound of it. But she really conveys, I think, the real shock and horror of an event like that. Yeah. And the woman on the phone next to her, she's on the phone. When they look at her hand holding the phone, her hand's completely bloody, and there's blood stained on her sleeve. She's functioning a little more than the other woman, but still, it's like it's something really serious happened there. So, I think it's I think it was fine to run this photo, and I think it did its job as trying to convey the story of what happened there. So I think it's all right.
Doug, what do you think? Was this image appropriate or inappropriate?
I think Jeffrey's right. Ultimately, I think it's appropriate, but I think the article in The Guardian, as it says here, raises the question of this. I have a number of friends who are photojournalists. I've taken classes with Peter Turnley. He and his brother David have been all over the world for decades. David Burnett is a friend, another photojournalist who's been in war situations and knows personally this story that's in our show notes about Nik and the girl who was covered in napalm and had horrible burns in Vietnam. I think it's a good question. I think there has to be judgment in these questions. Yeah, if those are looking at the video, is this on the video now that we're seeing?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So this is the girl who was burned by napalm, and this photo was taken by Nik. And Nik and David Burnett stayed in touch with this woman for until the present, and it's quite an impressive story, more than we have time to go in here. But Nik and David are very responsible for that. But what it raises for me is the fact that even in a lot of the professional journalism world, we've lost or are losing the role of the editor, the photo editor. And the photo editor is, the photographer's job is to get this picture. The photo editor's job is to decide whether to publish it or not. Now, this is an AP photo, so AP does have editors, although when AP puts the photo out, they're still not making the ultimate decision whether to publish or not. Everybody who's an AP subscriber makes that decision for themselves.
Yep.
And that's a role that in many places is gone because of whatever reason. And we see that in, consumer-provided photography to CNN, whatever it is. So what concerns me is that going forward, there won't be good judgment applied. And certainly we see on the internet a lot of bad judgment goes out there. So what happens now is that everything gets published, everything, regardless of how offensive or invasive it may be. That's what bothers me.
Yeah, I mean, but I understand that, but at the same time, how do you, if you're going to publish something or only certain things, then there needs to be the gatekeepers in the way. And in the old days, that was editors, right? That would say this image tells the story the best. They were the gatekeepers or the filters. Now we live in a filter-free world. So,
yeah, but that was and should be a very valuable role, because it used to be that because we subscribed to Life magazine or Look magazine, or we had 3 television channels. I really am showing my age this week, aren't I?
But say Life? What was that?
Yeah, but there was very limited visual bandwidth. We didn't get a lot of stuff, and so we depended on editor to tell us the story and to tell us to give us the right view of the story, because we weren't going to be able to see everything. Now the problem is that the consumer has to make up their mind with the flood of information, and sometimes the volume is something that distorts the truth.
Yeah. I don't know, Jeffrey?
Well, another point to consider too, from the sort of editor and photographer's point of view, is photos like this one are going to get out there regardless of AP photographers and editors, because people with their phones can be taking photos like this. So in a sense, the photographers almost have to step up their game to get compelling photos, because people are going to see shocking photos that really aren't edited, and maybe plenty of them shouldn't be published. I didn't really tune into Twitter or Instagram right after this attack, but I'm sure there were lots of horrific photos there as well. So I think that the professional press probably feels a little bit of pressure to be able to put out something that's going to capture people's attention in that way that your average person walking down the street with their iPhone is getting as well.
Yeah. So that's a race to the bottom, right?
Unfortunately, yeah. I mean, that's there are a lot more similar to what Doug was saying. There used to be many fewer content providers, whether TV or magazines, and now if you think of anybody with a camera phone able to provide content, because you see it all the time on the news, courtesy of Twitter, courtesy of Instagram. Yeah. That those images do make it into the media. So there's so much more content out there. I think that the professional media needs to almost compete with that in a sense to be able to get the eyeballs on their story. Yeah. The professional media, of course, photojournalists are always going to be able to get that real embedded, in-depth story that your person just walking by and snapping one lucky shot isn't going to be able to bring to the table. But in a case like this, where there's it's an instantaneous attack and there's not there's only limited time to capture these kind of images, then they are competing with everybody else with a camera.
Yeah, we almost rely on the quote real journalists to weave the flood of imagery into a narrative for us. Right. So that in effect becomes the editor, right, Doug? So we've got this flood of images coming in from the attacks, and they're from all different angles, and now here's a narrative in words, or on CNN or BBC or whomever that's saying, okay, this is what happened, and this many people were injured, and the authorities are doing this to bring the suspects to justice, et cetera, et cetera. But around that, you have a cloud of images that some crowdsourced and some professionally shot that then tell that narrative. What's missing is the ability to pick and choose which of those images you're going to look at or which ones get bubbled to the top. So you can't really put that genie back in the bubble or in the bottle, can you, Doug?
Well, no, and I'm not saying that we have to have professional journalists, professional photojournalists, and that those photos are the only ones that are valuable. I think there are a lot of situations where we're going to have a non-professional get the iconic shot of something that happens simply by the numbers. There'll be people, there'll be people in the right place at the right time to get the picture, and it might be blurry. We used to talk about, what's broadcast quality. And I said, gee, if you have the only recording of Martin Luther King's "I Have a Dream" speech, it doesn't matter if it's a little bit scratchy. You got the only recording, and that's what matters.
Yeah.
So it's not the photojournalist that I'm worried about, and I shouldn't say I'm worried. It's just that there is a very valuable role in photo editing, and that role is disappearing. What that means is that we're depending now on the volume of tweets and retweets to basically tell us what's the right image or set of images that reflect or tell a story. And I'm not sure I trust that as the right thing because of all the reasons that people might retweet a photo.
Well, okay. Well, let's contrast that whole thing with current events, right? So we've got the presidential elections that are coming up, and all the controversy around the rallies at the Donald Trump, and the kicking out protesters for whatever reasons, right? So looking at it through a photographer's lens or an editorial lens, if the images that are happening at those events were somehow filtered, then we may not get the true story, whether it's right or left leaning, right? So the fact that it is crowdsourced means that we can hopefully get a semblance of truth or make our own determination as to what the truth is by looking at the story in its entirety versus through one straw from one or a couple of people. Does that make sense, or am I off base?
Yeah. Yeah, I think that's an issue, but I think let's look at the American presidential race right now. I mean, at the time we're recording this, we just had a weekend of Republican candidates, putting up pictures of their various wives, either looking good or looking bad, and those are not the images upon which we should be electing the president of the United States. I don't think anybody's going to disagree with me.
Right. Yeah.
And yet those are the ones that are over the top in terms of what's trending online. So, history will help us here. I don't think that pictures of Heidi Cruz and whatever her name is, Trump, are going to be the images that we look back at 20 years from now. But it sure is it's not presenting our country very well, that's for sure.
Yeah, it's a little embarrassing. It is a little embarrassing. I don't know. It's crazy. We live in crazy times, but like I said, the genie's out of the bottle in a lot of ways. So, the days of the 3 television stations, ABC, NBC, and CBS, well, it's gone. Now we have hundreds and thousands of different channels for us to pick from at any given time. Doug, you checking your hair to see if it's still there?
Just make sure it's still gray.
There you go.
I have a feeling your hair was that color when you were in high school. I don't know.
This hair's been like this since I was 35.
Wow.
And I won't tell you how long ago that was, but you can do the math.
No, if you have a 40-year-old son, then that was quite a while ago.
Right.
All right, guys. We're going to take a quick break. When we come back, we're going to talk about Adobe introducing technology previews and search in Lightroom on the web.
By the way, there was an audio glitch. Did you hear that, Jeffrey?
I heard it. Yeah.
A little bit. I heard something. Yeah.
While you were talking,
like a little beep or something.
Well, I lost about 5 or 8 seconds of your audio.
Oh.
In the last question you asked me, it might have been at my end only, so I didn't say anything.
That's the magic of Zencaster. So we got it all in Zencaster.
Yeah. While we're breaking now, I thought I'd mention that. Okay.
All right, here we go. Continuing with the show. All right, guys, we're back. Since its introduction a couple of years ago, Adobe has continued to improve and enhance Lightroom Mobile and Lightroom on the web. Recently, the company announced Technology Previews, a series of features that will give users the ability to try out new features before they're officially available. Beta. So, technology preview or beta? Is it the same thing? Are we talking about the same thing here, or is a technology preview a fully baked service that they're letting us try out before it makes it mainstream? Jeffrey, have you seen this? Is this a good idea for Adobe?
Yeah, I was wondering what the thinking is behind this. I was wondering if maybe they're just trying to get features out faster, so they want to get in. It's very similar to beta. Yeah, get it out there. But I'm wondering then, like, who are they competing against if they're just trying to rush features to the market and make sure that people get them in their hand? So who are they really competing at? Like, what's the pressure maybe from Nik and Google?
Subscription revenue. They need to justify that subscription revenue.
Maybe so. Yeah, maybe that's it. Yeah, just keep people constantly buzzing about what's new in Lightroom, perhaps. But I think they've done a lot for the mobile photo editing. I don't do any mobile photo editing except maybe when I need to jam something on my laptop in a hotel room real quick or something. But I work in a very controlled environment here, with a color calibrated system and color calibrated room really.
For me, started on that color calibration fallacy, man.
I heard that last week's show. Yeah.
I should have had you on that show.
Well, it's a little it's a little bit you go through all these steps and then it's still like I guess that looks good.
That's so sad.
But now so now if you're trying to. But I think Adobe and Lightroom has brought a lot to the table in regard to being able to edit things mobily, get stuff up, syncing between devices. That's incredible. I mean, that's great. Think about again, sort of the most common user is probably someone who has just enough knowledge of photography to even know that Lightroom is around and say, oh great, I can take my vacation pictures. I can be editing them in the hotel room on vacation, and then when I get home, they're already they're already in my system at home, and it's just all that syncing back and forth. I think is great. Again, as for a professional workflow, I'm not sure how good or bad it is. I haven't tried it, but I do think that's great. And these technology previews, I guess, really, I think it's just about getting new tools in people's hands, keeping people happy, and thinking about Lightroom. I can't. Yeah, so we'll see what they bring.
I think it's a double. It's twofold, right? So it's getting technology in people's hands, i.e. beta, or you can call it a technology preview. But I think it's to justify that subscription revenue, but it's also use your existing user base to make these features bulletproof, right? And get their feedback, and then fix things, and then roll it out to the general paying and subscribing user base at that point. Doug, what about you? I mean, have you used Lightroom on the web at all?
I was a beta tester for Lightroom Mobile.
Did you just say beta tester?
Beta. Let's go beta tester. I was a beta tester.
Beta tester.
And I was very impressed with both the product at that stage and the way Adobe handled the process. They're very serious about going to mobile and going to the web. And I'm a big fan of it. I'm also a user, but I use Lightroom Mobile a lot because it's by far the simplest way to manage my portfolio on my phone. If I want to show people, show me some of your photos. Well, I've always got my big iPhone, that big whatever it is, 6 Plus S, not 6 Plus. Yeah. I've got the big ass phone, and I'm always showing images to people, and being able to synchronize them with Lightroom is by far the easiest way to do it because you just put them in a collection and they show up on your phone. It's just that easy. So I love that feature. I don't use the web stuff, but I've played with it, and because I knew we were talking about it this evening, I decided to check it out again. So anyway, I'm a big fan of Lightroom Mobile. I think they do really well. I think Adobe's serious about it, unlike Google with the Nik suite, who may or may not support it down the road. I think Adobe's stick with mobile, but come back in a year, we'll see. However, this thing about the previews is weird.
Yeah, I want to hear your thoughts on that.
Well, I mean, first of all, you can, what do you want to call it? Public beta? Great. What does that mean? They went through a totally private beta like we did with everything else in Lightroom Mobile.
Technology previews. It smacks of pre-driven automobile.
Yeah. Well, I mean, what does it mean? Oh, I get the technology preview. Wait a minute. So does everybody else on the web, right?
Yeah. Certified pre-owned technology features.
Suddenly I don't feel so special anymore. So I doubt, they're not putting them out before they're ready. Does that mean they're putting them out full of bugs? I don't know. What does it mean? They don't make that clear. So that's what I'm suspicious of. But it's a marketing thing. More power to them.
Yeah, yeah.
Mhm.
We'll wait and see. We'll wait and see. So, okay, to both of you guys, in a future world, let's fast forward. We're in the end of March of 2016. Let's say March of 2017. What does the landscape look like? Is Adobe still cranking along with the Creative Cloud? Has Google folded? They finally got the hint and closed Google Plus down, and then we've got Google Photos with Nik incorporated into it. What does it look like? And where would you put your images if you had a crystal ball and you could look a year forward from right now?
Go ahead, Jeffrey.
Thanks. That's all good questions, Frederick. I think, well, hopefully, I rely on Adobe Photoshop quite a lot. So, the sort of granddaddy of all this stuff. So I don't think that's going to go anywhere. I think that that'll still be around probably for quite some time. Not everybody needs that kind of horsepower, but it's nice to know it's there. I think they'll continue to support that. But yes, Google and Nik and all these other photo services, I think are, who knows? I mean that could come and go very, very quickly. But I definitely hope any of this technology could change. I mean, I was discussing something today with somebody about a friend wanted to get a new Mac Pro. I got mine 2 years ago, and but I'm thinking, well, maybe I should just tell them to get an iMac. But all these things and the criteria for making any choice about cameras or computers, all of this changes so quickly that where you put your photos and what your priorities are about your photos. Because for me, it's all about having them here with me and having access to them. I can access them remotely, but not through the web. And to be able to keep the tools. I've got my toolkit down to just two things. It's Phase 1's Capture One Pro and Photoshop. That's pretty much the two software suites I rely on. Not to mention minor other things. But so fortunately, Capture One is still growing and gaining in popularity. So that's good for me and all the other users. And but
it's
I think.
It's like with technology, even with our cameras and computers and software, anything you pay for these days, like you said, Jeffrey, things are moving at such a rapid clip forward. It's essentially a subscription anyway, right?
Mm-hmm.
So you buy your phone, whether you buy into Apple's subscription program or not, you're probably going to update it either next year or the year after that. So you're a subscriber whether you like it or not. It's just a matter of when you're going to pay your subscription fees.
Right. Exactly. None of it lasts forever because you figure, I've got my Photoshop, I'll keep using that forever. Well, no, you won't. Eventually you have to upgrade your computer, and it won't run on that computer. So we do rely on all these guys to keep updating and keep us able to being able to produce our work. So.
Doug K, jump in your time machine, man. What is the aside from having a few more gray hairs a year from now?
I'll probably have fewer. Since all the hairs are gray,
is that possible?
a year from now, we'll have fewer of them.
You're gonna have to dye some black so they can turn gray. What does the world look like?
I just made a note here. Life is a subscription, and it will expire.
Oh, that is nihilist.
I've been reading. You just caught me in a month where I've been reading a lot of time travel sci-fi books, and so I'm into this whole next year, last year stuff.
Yeah.
But I was just thinking about it. There are electronically there are three things we do with our images that we have to deal with. One is we need a way to back them up. And I have a completely non-cloud proprietary solution for doing that I did myself. The second is I've got my sales and marketing, my portfolio. I have my online portfolio site where people can see my best stuff and maybe purchase a print if they want to. And the third is my sharing, my social networking stuff. And that's, for me, it's Facebook, Instagram, 500px, and what am I leaving out? Flickr, yeah. Those are the four that I use these days. In fact, it's so boring. When I post an image, I post the exact same image to all four places, and I'm done. But those are the three scenarios, I guess, where we use online or electronically transmitted stuff. To me, these things like Flickr, Instagram, so forth, they're social networks. They can come and go. I really don't care because it's not about long-term storage for me. It's about interacting with friends, family, and so forth. So
and when it comes to backup, like Jeffrey, I don't have Drobos. I got another solution here, but it's my own. It works. I've got remote backups. I'm happy with it. So
yeah, take control of it. Yeah, that's a good point.
Well,
take control.
Again, you said a year from now.
Yeah.
Some social networks, photography networks will come and go. I really don't care. I'll play with some. I'll drop some. I'll add some.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's the fun part of all this stuff. Is that it all is that it all keeps changing over and over again. So it seems like it's an inconvenience that, okay, I have to upgrade this, I have to upgrade that, this new camera came, now I just got this 5K iMac, now I got to go get another one, all this stuff. Doug, we bought ours at the same time. But that's part of the fun. It's expensive and it's inconvenient, but if you rewind back from today, just to put Doug, get in your time machine, right? So if you rewind, you get in your time machine, and you go back 3 years from now, if you took yourself and put yourself in your former self 3 years from now, knowing what you know now, it would probably be almost unbearable, right? Because you've got these awesome phones that do all this crazy stuff, these apps that do things that you take for granted every day, and watching video, and you've got Apple TVs and streaming HBO and all this other stuff that wasn't here just 18 months ago, and now we have it, right?
Yeah,
so
it's pretty, and I wasn't using Instagram until I found a way to post to it from my desktop machine. Wasn't about to take my images that are carefully processed or done really well and somehow move them to my mobile phone so I could then upload them to Instagram. That wasn't worth it.
Wait a minute. But how'd you figure that out? Wait, how did that work?
I found a way. I'll put it in the show notes.
Put it in the notes, man. Come on.
Yeah. If you want to know how to post to Instagram from your desktop computer, it's in the show notes for this episode of TWiP.
That's it.
All right. Well, I need to know that. So yeah, get that in there.
Okay.
All right, guys. Let's move on. So I guess this show goes so fast. The hour is almost over. Let's do our picks of the week. This is a segment where you guys can recommend something to the TWiP Army that should hopefully be photography related. Jeffrey, you haven't been on in the longest, so what's your pick of the week?
All right. Well, as you mentioned at the top of the show, I do like my gear. So, and I use a lot of ProPhoto strobe lighting for my work, and we're always having to work with color temperature. So the strobe is obviously daylight balanced, but we often have to gel it. And up until recently, the way to gel it was to take a gel and tape it over the head of the light. It was kind of inconvenient, and the tape would get lazy and fall off. But ProPhoto, and it was funny that they came out with this because I was actually just about to start designing something and trying to 3D print it myself, and then they came out with this. So I'll start with the basic part. This is a device that they came out with a little while ago, which is, this one's actually so this device goes over the top of the strobe head, and they came out recently with these grids that can snap in to this part of the device. But what I'm really excited about are, in this fancy little wallet here, are these pre-cut gels, which you can take out, and they're all labeled really well. Thanks for putting that up, Frederick.
Sure.
So they're all labeled. They come. This one happens to be a full CTO. It tells you the amount of light you're going to lose. But again, I don't have the full system yet. It just isn't available yet. But it'll be a piece of plastic like this, and then there's another piece that goes on to hold the gel in place. But it's basically just going to hold the gel nice and tight to the light. There won't be a lot of light leaks. And everything's pre-cut and labeled, which is nice. And so I got in this kit this is pure color correction. They have a couple that are just more for fun color effects, but so this has quarter, eighth plus green, quarter plus green, half CTB, full CTB, eighth CTOs. So you can buy all these. Hopefully they'll last long. I thought they were going to be rigid plastic, but they're just regular gel material.
Sure.
But I'm really looking forward to it because we spend a silly amount of time just putting the gels on, putting the gels out, and retaping them because they fall off, and chasing down leaks because the light, if it's loose, the light bounces off the back of the gel and comes out sort of uncorrected or escapes out. Anyway, cool. Real excited about it. It does work only for these new ProPhoto lights, and it's meant to only be used on their two new what they call off-camera flash systems. They're B1s and D1s, which are both battery-powered systems, and they say only use them on those systems because the modeling lights are LED. So, because otherwise, there's something this close to a incandescent modeling light will melt.
It will become permanently part of that light, right?
Along with the plastic holder.
Yeah,
so,
yeah.
I'm not too worried about it. I'm going to use it on my D1s, which are the incandescent, because I don't really use modeling lights. So anyway, just something nice and cool from ProPhoto. They're always coming up with some really helpful tools. So check it out.
Very cool. And that's like $100, right?
Yeah, the kit that'll include the holder and a base set of gels is $100, and then this kit, which is a more extensive color correction, I think was $60, something like that, and comes with a little wallet thing. And then there's one for color effects, just crazier colors, darker blues and reds and things like that.
We're gonna do a TWiP show and focus it on color. And
yeah, that'd be great.
Yeah,
that'd be fun. Yeah, sure.
Because some of the comments that came along from last week's show we titled the show "Chasing Color," and someone wrote a comment saying, because I was saying, ProPhoto versus Alien Bees, Einsteins, which are they making better photons? Are ProPhoto making better photons than Alien Bees? And someone wrote in, and rightly so. I think the topic shifted to just persistence and consistency of color, over the life of the flash. And some of the cheaper flashes can vary widely. More expensive flashes will give you the same time day in, day out, or the same color day in, day out. But someone wrote in and said, inside the flash bulb itself, there are gases that mix together that create that color. And my response was, well, who's governing the gases inside?
Right.
You keep going back and back and back. So yeah, we have to do a show specifically on color and have you on and
that'd be fun. Yeah, for sure.
Okay, cool. All right, thanks for that, Jeffrey. Sure. All right, Doug K, what's your pick of the week, man?
Mine's a very different one from what we usually do. We talked about plugins for Lightroom, and just by accident, my pick of the week is one called LR Mogrify, LR for Lightroom, LR Mogrify 2.
I'm on the site. It's very unremarkable.
It is. Particularly for black and white images, they often look better if they have a little black border around them. So I had this problem. How do I put a border around a frame using just Lightroom that's only 5 pixels wide, or maybe 2% of the image, whatever way I want to judge the size of it? And for the life of me, I could not figure out a way to put a little black border around the image. So I went to Photoshop. How to do it in Photoshop? Even in Photoshop, I couldn't come up with an automated way to put a border around that was a standard size, regardless of the size of the image. Let's say I always wanted one that was, again, 1.5% or something like that. So I looked and looked and looked, and I found this piece of donationware, which means you give it the amount of money and you get a license, or you get a license. And LR Mogrify does all sorts of very cool things. I just happen to use it for putting black borders around my images, mostly the black and white ones. But you do all sorts of stuff with it. It's a little bit geeky because it's from the open source community. You know what that means, but I recommend it to people who want to do at least the black and white borders or any other sort of batch modifications of their image when they export them from Lightroom.
I love it. And what is that? It's free, right?
Donationware. So you get a restricted license of some sort. I forget what it does restriction-wise, but then if you donate something, almost anything, you get an unlocked version.
Yeah, well, I would definitely encourage TWiP listeners to donate, because that's how you keep people in business and enthusiastic about creating these cool tools that may have otherwise gone unmade. So yeah.
Yeah,
cool.
Doug, I don't know if you noticed from that. I noticed your when you posted the Photographer's Toolbox, they also make something called Infuse. Have you played with that?
Great.
Yeah, it's sort of an HDR kind of tool where you take several exposures across a range and it'll blend them together and pretty well. So that's cool. I haven't tried this Mogrify. I'll give that a look.
Yeah, definitely. Cool. Excellent. 2 excellent picks. All right, I have 2 picks this week myself, gentlemen. As you may or may not know, today as we record this, it is the 28th of March, and we launched a brand new addition to the TWiP network, or we're in the middle of launching it because we had to get through all the iTunes approvals and all that. But it's a show, it's a first of its kind for the TWiP network. We've never done a show that is targeted at a specific brand. But because of all the fervor around some of these brands, we're going to start doing that probably more and more over this year and next year. And this first one is called Alpha Mirrorless. And Doug, guess what it's about? You have any idea what this show is about?
I'm going to guess it's something about alpha mirrorless cameras. Sony
Yeah,
Alpha. Sony Alpha.
Exactly. We had to leave
Am I
Sony
close?
off of there.
Am I close?
You're close. Yeah, we had to leave Sony off of there for, I don't know why, but yeah, it's hosted by Juan Pons and Andy Williams, who are both Sony dudes, and they know more about Sony than probably a lot of people. And Doug, you should be a guest on that show. I think that'd be great to have you on there and talk about your Sony experience.
I got an idea. I'm going to talk to Juan and Andy about it right away.
Excellent, excellent. So yeah, definitely check it out. You can find it by the time this episode of TWiP goes live. That show will be added to the front page of This Week in Photo, or you can just get to it quickly by going to alphamirrorless.com. My second pick is another thing that we're releasing this week. It's called the TWiP School, and you can find that at school.thisweekinphoto.com. Bunch of learning resources and tutorials and courses, all kinds of cool stuff. Some free, some paid, that you can dive in and take advantage of. I'm really proud of this school. It looks great when you see it. It's been a lot of effort on the back end getting this thing built and bulletproof, and it's going to be fantastic. And it's going to serve as kind of a way for our hosts and our co-hosts and guests of the show to kick it up a notch and do some tutorials on things that don't warrant us talking about on the show itself. So we can do long-form, multi-hour trainings in the TWiP School, where on the show or even in a webinar would be impractical to do so. So definitely check that out and let us know what you think.
Sounds great.
Yeah, it's fun. I'm excited. Lots of stuff coming out.
Yeah. Keeping yourself busy over there.
You have no idea. You have no idea. There's that whole life thing, too. I don't know.
Oh, that.
I know. All right, guys, we're at the end of the show. We talked about what you guys are up to. You have any other things you want to talk about before we close the show off, Jeffrey?
No, that's about it. I would say for me, I did that Instagram probably 4 or 5 months ago, so I'm just getting started on that. So that's a lot of fun. You can check me out at Jeffrey Totaro on there.
Very cool.
In addition, same on Twitter.
All right, there you go. And thanks for coming on, man. I appreciate it.
Yeah, always a pleasure. Thank you.
Yeah. Doug K., what about you? What's anything else you want to throw in there?
Always go to dougk.com. You can learn more than you ever wanted to know about me. And in particular, if you're interested in going to Cuba late this year, particularly early next year, you can sign up there and learn more about it.
Perfect.
Awesome.
Excellent. All right, guys. We're at the end of another episode of This Week in Photo. I want to thank our sponsor, FreshBooks, for their support. And you can also, of course, visit our website at thisweekinphoto.com. Follow us on Twitter and Facebook and also YouTube. And if you're looking at us on YouTube, please comment, like, and subscribe. And also be sure to check out Alpha Mirrorless. We're really proud of that show, as well as our other shows. And also the school.thisweekinphoto.com. And with that, it's time to take that lens cap off.